In a world of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And now, your host, David Knight.
Welcome back. I told you in the last segment that we're going to tell you where this is leading, and here's the payoff in this segment. Bill de Blasio, who worked for Bill Clinton, who was sworn in by Bill Clinton, now says that Bill Clinton should have resigned. Oh, what does this tell you? What does this tell you? This is 20 years after it happened. 20 years after it happened. And as USA Today points out, they say, it's time for another look at Trump's accusers, say liberals. See, this is where this is leading. All of this that we're seeing now, and the fact that, you remember, I started out with Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas. And the fact that Anita Hill, who had accused Clarence Thomas, and he said, she said, this is something that had happened when just the two of them were present. And nobody could tell who was telling the truth. So people would make their decisions based on politics or whatever. But Anita Hill, who insisted that she had been insulted and sexually harassed. I mean, there's no physical contact alleged, but that she had insulting sexual remarks made to her by Clarence Thomas, which could not be proven. She later came in, and even though there were proven allegations against Bill Clinton, she became an apologist for him, as did Gloria Steinem. And that editorial that I read you earlier said that this basically shut down, these feminists destroyed the movement against sexual harassment, and to make sure that this wasn't going to happen. Their hypocrisy, the hypocrisy of people like Anita Hill and Gloria Steinem, shut that down and put it back to a footing where, yeah, anything goes. You're going to excuse what Bill Clinton did? Then I guess, all right, sexual harassment is fine as long as you're, guess what, powerful. What is this all based on? This is based on people who are powerful, people who are in position of power. So you're going to excuse that for Bill Clinton. Then that says basically, hey, if you're powerful and you can get away with it, you're Harvey Weinstein or you're Bill Clinton, you can get away with this stuff. So we're right back to where we started, or maybe worse, because they excused it for these people, openly excusing it for these people. So now you can look at this and you can say, well, I think that now they learned from that mistake, and so now they're coming after Clinton and all this kind of stuff. No. The reason they're coming after Clinton now is because they want to come after Trump tomorrow. That's why they're doing this. They're not going to let this stuff with Trump go away. And that's why Bill de Blasio, he worked for Clinton. He was sworn in by Clinton. He was quiet for 20 years. Now de Blasio is attacking him. Just as you saw Kirsten Gillibrand, who took Hillary Clinton's place, was going after Bill Clinton. Still kind of laying off of Hillary Clinton because she is a feminist icon, even though she attacked the women in a different way, but just as bad, perhaps worse than what Bill had done, because then she went after them publicly, went after their reputation, character assassination, calling them bimbos, bimbo eruptions. They were rape eruptions. And so we look at this situation from this report here from USA Today. They say 36 women who worked with Al Franken on Saturday Night Live stepped forward to lend him support. And so he's okay, because even though there's 7 or 8 women now who are talking about the behavior that he engaged with them, even though he was a writer who liked to write about his sick, perverted fantasies of, drugging women, posing them, taking pictures of them in various poses, imprisoning them, raping them. That was a skit that he had set up with Leslie Stahl. It was a funny joke. Well, yeah, it was okay because it's funny. Except he kind of acts out on those fantasies too, doesn't he? As we've seen. But it's okay because some of the women who worked with him and know him came forward and said it's okay. But when women come forward to do the same thing for Judge Roy Moore, oh, no. We can't give them any publicity whatsoever. The people who've known him publicly, who've worked with him, people who've known him privately, friends, family, wives, whatever. No. Don't listen to them. Because what they want to do is they want to clear out Bill Clinton, this hypocrisy that is hanging around their heads. And then they're going to come full bore on President Trump. That's what is next. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm David Knight. As I was saying at the top of the hour, if you're listening on radio and you had a news break, I'll just recap briefly what I was saying. I gave away where the ultimate goal of these sexual harassment charges, at least the political charges, are going. They're going towards President Trump. They have been hamstrung, the feminists have, by their defense of Bill Clinton. And that's why you see so many of these people turning against him. Bill de Blasio, who worked for Bill Clinton, who was sworn in by Bill Clinton. After 20 years, he's now saying Bill Clinton should have resigned. They're trying to clear the decks, and they're attacking the Clintons for a variety of reasons. Look, they don't like the fact that Hillary Clinton tried to make them the scapegoats for her failed campaign in her What Happened book. And she's got this worldwide whining tour where she's blaming everybody throughout the Democrat Party, inside the Democrat Party, outside the Democrat. Everybody is to blame but Hillary Clinton for her failed campaign. So that didn't make her very popular with them. They would like for her to go away. They realize how incredibly and criminally corrupt they are. We just had Charles Ortel on yesterday talking about the Clinton Foundation and the legal liability they have. So they want to be distancing themselves from the criminal crime family of the Clintons as well. But there's another aspect here, too. And that is that the ultimate goal on this, as USA Today is saying, it's time for another look at Trump's accusers. Trump is the ultimate goal when they're coming at this. We see that the guy in the box right now is Roy Moore. But again, as I said before, the ultimate target of this is Donald Trump. And when you look at Roy Moore is a proxy in this fight in the GOP civil war. It's Mitch McConnell has been saying, he's taken the line. These conservative candidates that are knocking out the establishment GOP, the rhinos that won't do anything once they get there because all they want is power. He is saying, you guys pick conservatives, you pick Tea Party candidates, and they're losers. And so he wants to make that case here with Mitch McConnell. And it will strengthen his hand if that happens. And then on the other side, if Roy Moore wins, you're going to start getting more conservative candidates, and you're going to get people like Roy Moore who are going to push back against Mitch McConnell, this fake Republican who says one thing and does another, this representative of the Uni Party. He's going to push back against it. And Mitch McConnell is going to be out as leader, whether he is majority leader or minority leader. He wants to stay leader. And if he has to lose a GOP majority, he's fine with that, as long as he stays the leader of these establishment Republicans in Washington. And so what we got now is a GOP civil war. And this election of Roy Moore is really kind of a Gettysburg, if you will. It is going to be a turning point in the war, one way or the other. And let's hope that these allegations are going to turn into Pickett's charge for Mitch McConnell. Let's hope that that's what happens. But to give you an idea of where we're going, and if you don't think this is ultimately leading to Trump, just think about the fact that for the year we've had this fake Russian stuff going on. It's still going on. I want to play for you a clip from Alan Dershowitz talking about Mueller, talking about the whole idea of a special counsel. Here's Alan Dershowitz, who is promoting a book on Fox News. It's called Trumped Up. And he has some real legitimate concerns with special prosecutions, and especially with what's going on in this particular instance. Here's what Alan Dershowitz has to say.
A lifelong Democrat, and you wrote the book on all of this, on this investigation, Trumped Up.
Yep.
What's your take on this latest development?
Well, I think it's very worrying. I think it shows that Mueller is going well beyond his authority as a prosecutor and is trying to make a case that the president might have engage in obstruction of justice by engaging in constitutionally protected act. The president is entitled to fire the head of the FBI. The president's entitled to direct his attorney general who to investigate, who not to. That's what the law has been since Thomas Jefferson directed his attorney general to go after Aaron Burr. If we want to change it, we should change it by legislation or constitutional amendment, but you can't change the law by having a prosecutor make a crime out of something that's a constitutionally protected act.
But it doesn't matter what his motivation was. I mean, it seems like that's what they're seeking with the emails and the communications between the team.
This is the Fox News reporter.
They're looking for the motivation.
Do we really want to psychoanalyze every president's motivations? How many of the motivations are political? How many of them are opportunistic? You know, you vote for a president. We're entitled as citizens to look into the president's mind and speculate and say he was badly motivated. I don't see that the prosecutor should have a right to turn a constitutionally protected act of the president into a crime by speculating about what his motive might have been.
So this originally was
hold it
supposed to
right
be
there. That's the key thing. This is a Fox reporter interviewing Alan Dershowitz, a lifelong Democrat. Alan Dershowitz is defending the rule of law here. And you've got this woman from Fox News saying, but what about his motives? His motives don't matter if he's following the law. And we see this happening with all these judges who are second-guessing Trump's orders on immigration and so forth. They never did that with Obama. So it's purely political. But they're using, these judges are saying, well, I think that this is what he wants to do, and I don't agree with that, so therefore I'm going to block this order. It doesn't matter. You look at the order. Is the order the written order? Is it legal or not? And this is where we get when we wind up accepting the idea that the Supreme Court can just ignore the rule of law and start to, that we have a living document in the Constitution, that they need to be able to reinterpret that and to reflect the ideas of the voters. Alan Dershowitz said, there's no reason to start to psychoanalyze his motives. That's not the purpose of courts. It's not the purpose of prosecutors. But see, the special prosecution is about going after a man. And if you're going to go after a man, you're going to start you're going to start psychoanalyzing him. And I think it's interesting to see that back and forth between a Fox reporter who is pushing this subjective standard of law and pushing the idea that we're going to continue to do this personalized investigation of Donald Trump. And you've got a Democrat who is actually saying, no, actually, we have a rule of law here. It's the voters can make a judgment about this person's character and their motivations and so forth. They can psychoanalyze people, but that's not the purpose of these courts. So now let's go to Roy Moore, the person who is in the box right now, the proxy in this GOP civil war. Conservative Tribune points out that even in the face of this smear campaign, that contributions have gone up significantly for Roy Moore. His campaign manager said that the campaign had actually raised more cash over the past 10 days than they had during the previous entirety of the race, including $500,000 in just 3 of those 10 days. Is that enough? He says donations are pouring in from Alabama and all over the country in an unprecedented way. However, as they point out, he's not the only one who's getting an influx of cash from Alabama and all over the country. The NBC News reports that Doug Jones has been making a lot of money and even more. They say that Roy Moore got $500,000 in just 3 of those 10 days. Well, guess what? Doug Jones is getting about $250,000 per day. And it's they said this is like Ossoff level money. Remember Ossoff, the guy in Georgia that they spent $30 million on a congressional campaign? $30 million. It wasn't that long ago, it was year 2000, that Al Gore accused George W. Bush of trying to buy the election because he spent about $100 million. He says, this is crazy. And I think Al Gore at the time had spent like $60 or $70 million, something like that. And now $30 million for a congressional race the Democrats spent in Georgia. They lost, by the way, but they spent that money. So this is the kind of money that is pouring in. Then we see an ex-Alabama cop comes in and says, well, I was told that I had to watch Roy Moore because he harassed cheerleaders at ball games in the 80s. She said that he had been suspended from the Gadsden Mall because he would often target young females. However, the manager at the mall says, no, Roy Moore was not banned from the mall. And as New American points out, one of the strangest allegations leveled against Roy Moore is that he was banned from a shopping mall. And the guy who was the manager there told a local station, yeah, it's part of the job. We get written reports on people, but he was not banned from the mall. The New Yorker went there and said they tried to verify this, but there are no records. And nevertheless, we have this smear campaign continuing to go on from somebody who says, yeah, he was banned from the mall. Again, it's another he said, she said. But when we come back, we've got more on Roy Moore. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm David Knight. In the next segment, we're going to have Lionel join us. So stick around for that. Also, we've got a couple of new specials that we've added to our Black Friday, Cyber Monday specials at InfoWarsStore.com. We've added Super Male Vitality and Living Defense, both 50% off and free shipping. It joins a lot of other products like Brain Force Plus, Knockout, Silver Bullet that are 50% off plus free shipping. Actually, Silver Bullet is 67% off plus free shipping. And all of our ProPure products are 25% off and free shipping. So take a look at the weekly specials that we have at InfoWarsStore.com, and we thank you for your support. As I was saying in the last segment, Roy Moore is the man in the box right now. Roy Moore is the proxy in this fight in the Civil War in the GOP. And there have been a couple of press conferences in the last 24 hours Donald Trump has weighed in on this race. We're going to play what he had to say in just a moment. But let's play what the Moore campaign said yesterday as they met. They're talking about the fact that Mitch McConnell has spent $30 million trying to stop Judge Roy Moore, and that was before any of these allegations about sexual misconduct came out. Well before that. And as I pointed out, against not only Roy Moore, but against Mo Brooks in Alabama. So Mitch McConnell has been using your money, if you donate to the Republican Party, the Senate Leadership Fund, GOP Senate Leadership Fund. He's been spending 150, it's either 150 or 160. I worked out the math. I reported on that a week or two ago. But 150 to 160 times the amount of money against conservative Republicans that Mitch McConnell has spent against Democrats to defeat them. But here's what the Moore campaign had to say yesterday.
Over the past several months, the Washington Post, the Republican establishment, and the Democrat Party have waged a three-front war to destroy Judge Roy Moore's character and impeccable reputation.
If you can be tricked, Alabamians, with a $30 million from Mitch McConnell, maybe it's 40 by now, and the Washington Post fake stories, if you can be tricked in 2 weeks about Judge Roy Moore, then they win.
They win. That's right. It'll be over. And how is it right now? We've seen a couple of different polls coming out. We've seen two polls that say that it's a dead heat. As I reported yesterday, one of those polls that says it was dead, it is a dead heat, said it was a dead heat in the runoff election between Moore and Luther Strange, Mitch McConnell's candidate. And that, of course, was not a dead heat. Moore won that by 9 points. Now, there's another poll that has come out, reports Breitbart, saying that Judge Roy Moore leads Doug Jones by 6 points. And this one has the largest number of voters polled as I've seen any of these polls. It's 11,600. Some of the polls have as few as 600 people that they poll. The other one that was a 50-50 tie was 3,000 people. One of them 600, the other was 3,000. This is almost 12,000 people. The survey shows Roy Moore tracking down slightly since the allegations were released by the Washington Post, but still holding a 5.9% lead, said the pollster. So we're still waiting to see what happens. And again, it's another week or so. It's beginning of December. I think that the election is going to be there. Politico says Doug Jones can beat Roy Moore. But there's one big problem. What is that problem? The problem in Alabama, and we're going to give you some other issues here, but the real big problem for people in Alabama is Doug Jones's position on abortion. Remember at the beginning of the program, we played that clip for you of the San Diego abortionist getting in the face of the protester there and having a demonic fit. I mean, just whether he was trolling him or not, I mean, the guy was really hateful. And he's holding a pair of scissors. And they've been under investigation for a lot of misconduct. And you see in that still picture that he was right in his face, so close that you couldn't see his face in the recording. He's lost his medical license. That clinic has been shut down. They want to say that it's a women's health clinic, but they've had women who've nearly died there because they wouldn't take the right kind of care for them. And that is a big issue. But a person who supports this every bit as much is Doug Jones. As Politico says, left-leaning Politico says, there's one potentially crippling problem for Doug Jones in Alabama. His extreme position on abortion. In a recent interview, NBC's Chuck Todd asked Doug Jones, what are the limitations that you believe should be in the law when it comes to abortion? And Jones responded, he's a firm believer. This is a quote. I'm a firm believer that a woman should have the freedom to choose what happens to her body, and he affirmed his support for contraception, a woman's right to, quote, the abortion they might need. When Todd asked him if that meant that he would support a ban on abortion after 20 weeks, Jones replied that he was, quote, not in favor of anything that would infringe on a woman's right to choose, unquote. He said, however, once the baby is born, I'm going to be there for the child. That's where I become a right-to-lifer. So he becomes a right-to-lifer after the baby is born, which means that evidently he would support full-term abortions. That's the alternative to Roy Moore. For those of you in Alabama, you should understand that. You should understand that. And he goes on to say that he supports federal funding for abortion. And Politico points out this is a position that would overturn 40 years of bipartisan policy on the matter. We have never had federal funding for abortion here in the U.S. But Doug Jones, Roy Moore's opponent, supports that. This is what President Trump had to say yesterday as he was about to board a helicopter. He was asked about Roy Moore. Here's President Trump.
I can tell you one thing for sure. We don't need a liberal person in there, a Democrat. Jones, I've looked at his record. It's terrible in crime. It's terrible in the border. It's terrible in the military. I can tell you for a fact, we do not need somebody that's going to be bad on crime, bad on borders, bad with the military, bad for the Second Amendment. Look, he denies it. I mean, if you look at what is really going on and you look at all the things that have happened over the last 48 hours, he totally denies it. He says it didn't happen. And, you know, you have to listen to him also.
That's right. And so, you know, most of the charges, except for the ones put out there by Gloria Allred, which are looking pretty fraudulent at this point. I mean, not only the handwriting and the details about what was put on that signature, but also what people who had worked at that restaurant said. Said, no, he wasn't a regular customer. No, she wouldn't have been waiting on him if he went to the counter every day. No, there weren't any dumpsters in the back. No, it wasn't dark. It was very well lit, and it was by a 4-lane highway, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of questions about those allegations. And again, when it comes down to it, it's right down to, really, you're back to the politics. So back to Anita Hill versus Clarence Thomas. Who are you going to believe in a he said, she said accusation like that? And as President Trump pointed out, he said he's terrible on crime, he's terrible on the border, he's terrible on the military, and he's very bad on abortion as well, which would matter to conservative voters in Alabama. Roy Moore, meanwhile, has come out and started calling his opponent, Doug Jones, a Mexico First opponent. He said the Mexico First policies of Doug Jones are straight from the pit of the failed Obama administration. They have no place in Alabama, certainly not in the vacated seat of Jeff Sessions. Jones, in interviews, has consistently supported the DREAM Act and expanding the DREAM Act. Roy Moore, on the other hand, has said there is no such thing as a dreamer because there wasn't a law passed to create that act. That was a series of memos put out by the Department of Homeland Security. So we need to look at that as this fight is coming up. It's coming up very quickly. It's the Democrats want to do this before the end of the year. Paul Ryan says, don't worry about it. We can do it in the spring. And, of course, they're going to be pushing, many of the Uni Party are going to be pushing an extension of the DREAMER Act and of chain immigration. And what's going to happen if we don't have people who are going to fight against that? Stay with us. We'll be right back. Lionel is going to be joining us. Welcome back. Lionel is joining us, and I want to get his take on some of these issues. Of course, Lionel, you can find him on YouTube, Lionel Nation, on Twitter, at Lionel Media. And Lionel, we've got this article here. Of course, President Trump came out and endorsed Roy Moore yesterday. He said, we don't want a liberal, and he said his opponent is bad on all these other issues. And then James Comey tweeted out a quote from Jane Addams and said, the essence of immorality is a tendency to make an exception of myself. And I looked at that and I thought, does he not realize the hypocrisy here? James Comey, who made an exception for Hillary Clinton, who said, look, she violated all these national security laws, all these felonies, but we're not going to do anything about it. But don't you try this at home. I mean, you want to talk about selective exceptions of morality? This guy who is a poster child for double standards and corruption in government, James Comey, takes a swipe at Donald Trump for that. What do you think, Lionel?
I can't believe it. It's unmitigated. I don't know if it's audacity, hubris. I don't even know what the terms are. You know,
hubris, I'd say. Yeah. I
got to tell you something, David. These are the most amazing times where I feel like I'm in a parallel universe where I'm so used to this insanity. And I don't want to in any way hijack anything, not far be it from me, but I got to ask you this question. For $25,000 in a new car, can you tell me why out of this seemingly endless legion of pedophiles, creeps, cruds, you name it, why is it that all of them tend to be, quote, liberal, seemingly progressive? And I've been thinking about this. I mean, you can go down the list. What do they all have in common? Charlie Rose and this and that. That's question number one. Number two, these people, David, love to talk about you and your guns as far as being some kind of a weird psychosexual connection between you and your gun, some extension of whatever, some masculine
phallic symbol or something, phallic symbol, a power symbol, that type of thing,
Right. Now, meanwhile, you and I are saying, well, I would like just to maybe have a handgun just to protect myself and my family. What are you, crazy? You're a lunatic. You're sick. Meanwhile, they're grabbing every.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Oh, he froze. That was not. That was not intentional. We've lost contact with him. Perfect observation, though. Turning handguns. Okay, he's back. Okay, you froze there for a second on our feed, but you're back now. Go ahead, Lionel.
Well, it's funny. Whenever that happens, people say the NSA. They're moving in. It's like it's easy. But what they're doing is they're so demented by this, and I'm thinking, I'm the nut because I want to utilize the Second Amendment. You're grabbing people, and the pedophile issues have not even come. We haven't even gone near that one. But here's the thing that I'm wondering about. And here's the $1 million question. David, for the longest time. And I do not consider myself, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not bursting any bubbles here, but I don't consider myself a conservative or any kind of label. I don't really know I never understood what that meant. I always thought conservatives in the old days were kind of stodgy, and liberals were, they made it sound cool, but it turns out they're basically baseless. But here's an interesting thing. People who for the longest time said, I want to respect sex, I want to respect marriage and sex before marriage. I want to be rather, okay, maybe Victorian, maybe I'm old-fashioned, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that. It turns out that might be the reason why we don't have this sexual disrespect, the assaults, because of this debauched lunacy. Maybe this mindset that's constantly trying to hyphenate gender. My God, gender, male, female, oh no, crypto, LGBTQIA / whatever. So maybe in a very strange way, this conservative lifestyle behavior mindset that actually respected sex and commitment and emotion and love, maybe that was the perfect vaccination, to use that term, against this horrid pedophilia, pederasty, this paraphilia.
Yeah. And of course, they let that go. They push that institutionally to kindergartners. And that's the amazing thing to me about it, is that they will talk about the fact, oh, look, these are 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, but they're teaching kindergartners about transgender and gender fluidity. And it's like they're not of the age where they can even process that, where they even understand what you're talking about. And what they're doing is they're doing stuff that's not only way inappropriate for these kids, but they're pushing the idea that if these kids can decide what gender they are, then they can give informed consent for sexual acts. That's where we're ultimately headed with this. And we just had Rex Tillerson celebrating Transgender Day of Remembrance at the State Department on Monday. I mean, it's crazy stuff.
What does that mean? Remember, I mean, who? Christine Jorgensen? I'm dating myself constantly. Hey, by the way, Dave.
Maybe J. Edgar Hoover. I don't know. It's like.
We lost. Listen, you and I are from a generation. We just lost David Cassidy. I don't think people understand what that was about. But I got to tell you something else. 54 years ago was our red pill moment. And I got to tell you something. Do you realize at that particular time, we didn't even know what the word conspiracy theory meant. The CIA had not, boy, I am like jumping ahead. I mentioned JFK, now you got David Cassidy. I'm going to have your poor people in tech going crazy. But this guy make up his mind? Ham sandwich. Quick, Jennifer, ham sandwich. On rye. Anyway. But
we'll put a partridge in the pear tree as a remembrance this year for David. But, go ahead.
And don't forget, the Partridge Family were based on the Cowsills. Okay?
That's right. I know, yeah. We're on the same time, yeah. You and I are on the same page.
You and I in this relic, this history. But when JFK and Mark Lane and these guys came along and they said, hey, I think there's something to this story doesn't make any sense. People said, hey, you're right. I want to find out about it. My God, they killed our president in front of us. Well, let's get to the bottom of this. Today I was like, oh, what are you, nuts? What are you, you daring to question the government? You tinfoil hat lunatic. These were innocent times when we said, I accept knowledge. Here, set me free knowledge. Let me know. Don't let me grovel. Don't let me be in any way, how do I say, offended by being double crossed by my country. If there was the remotest chance that this great man would have been killed by any group of people, we wanted to know. Today, we have this reluctance where we don't want to talk about unless it's Roy Moore. Then we're going to talk about, but look at how we changed, David. There was a time when it was okay to ask these questions. You weren't considered a lunatic. This is where, let me just make this statement. Your government, in conjunction with the mob and every conceivable rat's nest of conspirators, took this man out. Now, who was the actual shooter? What was the actual reason? Those things can be debated, but it is without a doubt certain that the Warren Commission is a fiction. And it was the first time, I remember as a kid, I didn't understand what was going on, but they told me from the beginning, this Oswald could not have, this thing was so replete. And David, that's when I started down this path. That was my red pill moment before I knew what the hell a red pill moment was.
And everybody said, the FBI said, stop with the conspiracy theories. It was a lone shooter. We said, we know it's not a lone shooter. Stop with your magic bullet theories. We don't buy that either. And yet today, we've got a situation where it's not just the assassination of the president, but it's even the fact that we've got all these sexual assaults that are happening in Congress. They're paying out $17 million, and we're not even allowed to know who these people are. We got to search around in the hidden documents to find that and leak it. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Lionel. I'm David Knight. Welcome back. I'm David Knight, and we're talking to Lionel. I want to get back to what we were just talking about, the awakening of America, and I think we've been a big part of that here at Infowars, so much so, in fact, that they want to shut us down. And part of that is economic censorship. You have stood with us, and we really appreciate that. It's one of the things that we'll be thankful for this Thanksgiving. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. We've added some new products to our Black Friday through Cyber Monday specials. Super Male Vitality and Living Defense at 50% off plus free shipping. They join products like Brain Force Plus and Knockout, 50% off plus free shipping. Silver Bullet, 67% off and free shipping. Also, all Pro Pure products, 25% off and free shipping. Big savings on that. So thank you so much for your support. Take a look at the products that we sell at InfoWarsStore.com. That's what supports this program and everything that we do here, and we do appreciate your support and the products that you buy there. You know, Lionel, you were just talking about JFK. You're talking about people waking up. Well, some of the people that have woken up are, say, your favorite guy there, Bill de Blasio. This is a guy now criticizing Bill Clinton and saying that Bill Clinton should have resigned. Bill de Blasio, who was sworn in by Bill Clinton, who worked for him for years, and now 20 years on, he's saying, oh, yeah, he should have resigned a long time ago. What do you make of the fact that we got all these Democrat rats that are jumping off of the Clinton ship? Do you think that's all there is to it, or is there something else down the line? I think they're setting this up to come after Trump, I think, to try to reopen all these sexual allegations about him.
The signal has been given, the sound the klaxon. They are through with these Democratic, in fact, we may have talked about this before, Democratic big donors are just disgusted with the Clintons, with Hillary. And by the by, they're not done with the Clinton Foundation. That fraud, that incredible fraud that we did. And you had on the amazing, a great friend of mine, Charles Ortel, who was just, he is the Carl Sagan of this. It sounds rather
billions and billions of dollars. Yeah, that Carl Sagan. Yeah,
exactly, precisely. But also,
and he pointed out too, Lionel, yesterday. He said, you're talking about the big donors, the big Democrat donors through the Clintons. They are worried because it's the big globalist foundations and the big donors. Boy, they could get roped into this because all of those IRS records are there, and it wasn't ever a valid charity. So that could all bounce back to them along with penalties and interest. Yeah.
For 20 years. Remember, Enron was a for-profit fraud. The United States government says, look, you want to screw pensioners, that's your business. You want to hose the American people, that's fine. You deprive us of taxes and phony deductions for some phony, baseless, unverified charity. Oh, no.
That's right.
But I got to tell you, David, sometimes the hardest part is trying to say, okay, I'm going to handle this, and then I'm going to go to this subject, because I wake up and it's like, I don't even know where to start. First, we have to say something. There is somebody sounded the alarm. This is not Hollywood. I had some people say to me, would you get off this Hollywood sex stuff? We're not talking about Hollywood sex. That's not it. We're talking about, it's like somebody said, it's okay. Get them. Clean this out. Think of it as a large, and I'm sure there's some connection to your wonderful products, some laxative, some colon blow, or removing
oxy powder. Yeah.
Yes, whatever you want to call it.
Dose of oxy powder, and it's turning around.
This is a clogged Bezor, that thing that John Wayne supposedly had. Remember that whenever they do these weekends, did you ever hear those ads? John Wayne had 50 pounds of undigested, I don't know, whatever. But that's what's happening. And these people are not necessarily just entertainment. It's not about Charlie Rose. No. Charlie Rose was the globalist darling, the CFR trilateral. This is a guy who, when Brooke Astor had her deal when her son-in-law or son, Tony, there was some charge of fraud. You should have seen the witness list. David Rockefeller, Charlie Rose, he's the Park Avenue, Upper East Side, globalist CFR. Oh, and this one here. Let me tell you what she's doing. These people are incredible. Gayle King goes on TV and says, I can't even talk about this anymore. You've been talking about this on every show. She said, I could only sleep an hour and 42 minutes. Oh, you timed it? I had to call Oprah. And people are saying, oh, wait. What's going on with this?
And there's 16 people, Lionel, and she pretends that she doesn't know that any of this stuff was going on. I mean, this is worse than J. Edgar Hoover. At least J. Edgar Hoover wore a dress and high heels. Rose didn't wear anything, right? Maybe,
but just for Clyde Tulsa. But here's the deal. Look, I heard about Charlie's Angels years ago. I don't even work there. You mean to tell me somebody in the CBS building on 57th Street never hears this? But here's the deal. This shows you how diabolical these are. They're sticking knives in Charlie. Why? Because CBS is third. So all of a sudden they're floating. Let's get Oprah in. Oprah and her best friend, Gayle, with Dora. This would be a ratings powerhouse. And you know and I know. Somebody said, wait a minute. Who knows? These people are so diabolical. They might have sped this Charlie thing along because there's a morals clause somewhere. There is something that will excuse CBS or PBS of any you violate. You've brought ignominy and shame and opprobrium to our organization. Well, now you have just waived whatever. But aside from that, I kept thinking to myself, why is Gayle King going on that horrid Stephen Colbert? By the way, David, if ever I've ingested large amounts of poison and you don't have any syrup of Ipecac in an emergency room, show me any rerun of Stephen Colbert and I will wax Vesuvius-like in my projectile emesis because he makes me sick. But anyway, but why is Gayle going up? Because they're setting it up to bring in, they're pushing Charlie out. You're done, old man, 75 years old. You're toast. You're Elvis. Out the door you go. Bring in Oprah. Bring in Gayle, bring in this to forge ahead. You don't think Les Moonves is smart enough to see this one coming? You talk about conspiracies. These people would make Alex and you look like pikers. These people, they are as Machiavellian as you can imagine. So
we're not Machiavellian. Well, we may be conspiracy theorists, but we're not Machiavellian. Yeah, I got your point. Go ahead.
No, but this is this is tumbling here. Nobody knows what's happening. And also in the meantime, you got to hear this one. RT and Sputnik. God bless RT. RT, you talk about conspiracy. RT, these are the greatest people in the world. 6 months ago, people said, RT, Is that like RFD? Is that Mayberry F. Kenberry? RT? Is that like KFC? What is RT? Now it's, where do I get it? How do I see this? Because now it's verboten. It's dangerous. I got to see this. Are these people idiots? You just gave them the best platform ever. So here we have this guy Quigley in front of the world saying, now how come you can't? I saw something the other day. Why he hasn't affected his southern accent, I have no idea. But I saw an Infowars a hashtag about terrorism. How did that happen? Well, sir, it happens because civilians and citizens like that. They'll say, oh no, we'll take care of that. Well, yeah. Is he stupid? And then you have other people asking Google, and how come these things are being monetized? Well, we'll take care of that. Hello? Now, here's the best part.
And now they got Google putting a whole bunch of Snopes things under Alex Jones there, as if Google is some arbiter of truth. It's amazing.
Better yet, quickly. YouTube, who was going to demonetize you if you ever talk about Trump, has a kids section with Elsa Gate and every kind of sexual predilection and defecatory and experimental reference in YouTube Kids, and you didn't see that? Right. You didn't realize this? Have you been seeing the pedophilia, the references? Are you kidding me? You're worried about somebody daring to mention Infowars or actual terrorist attacks, and let me say this again, YouTube Kids.
That's right. That's right.
What?
Absolutely.
I mean, David, and what? We're crazy? We live in a world. You can't write this stuff. I think somewhere it says, listen to me. Again, why these accents? I have no idea. Let's do this to drive Alex crazy. I've got an idea. We're going to demonetize Paul Joseph Watson for daring to say something true. Let's have a YouTube Kids section that promotes pedophilia. What do you say? Oh,
that's absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. Well, that's it for our broadcast today. Thank you so much for joining us, Lionel. Have a great Thanksgiving, Lionel. And to all of you listeners, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And if you want to follow Lionel, you can find him on YouTube, Lionel Nation, also Twitter, @Lionel Media. We'll see you later. Have a good Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.